So I'm thrilled to have Anna Balzer with me. Anna is the Director of Organization and Advocacy for the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Anna, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
Anna, I've caught you in somewhere in the States, in California, I think you told me. And I hope the weather's a little bit better there than it is here right now. Anna, can you tell me, first of all, just describe what the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights is?
Yes, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights is a coalition of more than 3 nations around the United States, advocating to end all U.S. institutional support for Israel's occupation and apartheid regime against the Palestinian people. We have faith organizations, campus groups, local community groups, national groups, chapters of international groups. We have, it's really an umbrella organization for groups that are working on this issue. And we dedicate a lot of time to supporting the member group-led campaigns of our coalition, and also running campaigns of our own, oftentimes boycott and divestment campaigns around changing U.S. policy on the federal or state or municipal level, and other kinds of creative resistance to Israeli apartheid in support of Palestinian liberation.
Anna, sometime in the last year, your organization changed its name. It used to be called, was well known as the U.S. Campaign to End the Occupation. And you changed the name to the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Why?
So there were several reasons. We had been wanting to actually for a very long time, but we needed to do it in a really accountable way, especially to our base and Palestinians in our coalition. And there were several reasons. One of them is we wanted to talk about what we were for, not just what we were against. And our previous name was very kind of cumbersome and hard to say. But very important was that the framework of focusing only on Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza was limiting. We have always been for the full breadth of Palestinian rights, and that means not only ending Israel's occupation that began in 1967 of the West Bank and Gaza, including also East Jerusalem, but also full equality and justice for Palestinians inside Israel who remained after the Nakba, and of course the majority of Palestinians who are in exile in the refugee population. Those who were exiled in 1948 during Israel's creation of a Jewish state in a land where the majority was not Jewish, and all of their millions of descendants. And so we wanted a name that really encompassed the breadth of our values and what we work for, and what we have actually always worked for, but we wanted an updated name that made that really clear.
And sorry.
Center Palestinians themselves. So it was good to have a name that actually had the word Palestinian in it.
Anna, was there any debate? Were there any people who were uncomfortable with the name change?
To be honest, I can't think of any. We endorsed the full BDS call, as well as the call for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. Shortly after, both of them were made by Palestinian civil society. We have been working on these different aspects for many, many years, and so we really needed a name that caught up with where we were at as an organization. So we got nothing but accolades for it. Yeah.
Okay. In Canada, I can only speak a bit from the Canadian experience. There are a number of church groups and others that are very strongly opposed to the occupation, particularly focused on the settlements and the wall and so on. But when it comes to the other 2 demands of the BDS movement, particularly they become much more uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with the right of return, as they're worried about what that's going to mean to the future of the state of Israel. Do you have in your coalition, are there organizations that only buy on to part of the 3 demands that you just outlined?
Well, member groups sign on for themselves and agree to the common platform and principles. So, our coalition continues to endorse different campaigns and did endorse the BDS call. So that would be sort of an anomaly if it exists at all. I would to those Canadian groups and others who have this, and of course this does exist in the US. We have, for example, J Street, which works to end the Israeli occupation to save Israel and preserve it as a Jewish state, and explicitly combats efforts like BDS that work for the full breadth of Palestinian rights and justice. My question would be, how do you see Israel's occupation in a broader historic context? I mean, this year in 2017, we're seeing the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. We're seeing the 70th anniversary of the beginning of the Nakba, in which Israel massacred and exiled the majority of Palestinians from the land to produce an artificial Jewish majority, to create a Jewish state where there had been no Jewish majority by killing and kicking out everybody, or most of the population. And we see the 50th anniversary of the 1967 occupation of all remaining Palestinian lands that had not already been occupied in 1948. So clearly Israel's occupation, if we look at the 1948 Nakba, in which Israel was created through a catastrophe of exiling Palestinian Muslim, Christians, and other non-Jews from the land violently, to create an artificial Jewish majority, and then sort of calling it a democracy when it was artificially created to begin with. And then we saw less than 20 years later the occupation of all remaining Palestinian lands in 1967 of the West Bank and Gaza. We see that the 1967 occupation is really the continuation of a much longer process of colonization of Palestine that was set out as early as the Balfour Declaration itself and before. And so it's really to sort of dehistoricize the occupation and really to I would say that it's actually rooted in a form of racism. What we're saying is that it's bad what's happened to Palestinians over the last 50 years in the West Bank and Gaza, but we have no problem with those same policies of military law and displacement and killing that began, in years before it. So it's really, I think, a disservice to the cause. I don't think we can pick and choose when it comes to solidarity. Palestinians are struggling for their full rights, the full menu of rights, and not simply, it's not for us to pick and choose which Palestinians gain their liberation. Palestinians have made a very clear call in the 2005 call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions, that liberation includes not just the end of the occupation, but equality for Palestinians inside Israel and the right of return for refugees. And that is really the only consistent way, I think, to approach this issue. Otherwise, we are claiming to know better for Palestinians what their liberation looks like. And furthermore, you look at something like J Street's platform trying to end occupation to save Israel. What does that mean? Israel exists as a Jewish state only through the perpetual discrimination and abuse of the indigenous Palestinian population. Israel is not the state of its citizens. It's the state of a whole bunch of people who aren't its citizens, like myself. In the United States, I could go there tomorrow and get citizenship, and not the state of a whole bunch of people who aren't citizens, Palestinians inside Israel, who are denied basic rights simply because they're not Jews living in a Jewish state. So what does it mean to fight to preserve Israel as a Jewish state? It means to fight to preserve discrimination and oppression. And if we are opposed to the occupation because it is oppressive and because it is wrong, we should be opposed to all things that are oppressive and wrong. So it's really to be very limited and hypocritical, and to stray from the basic principles of solidarity that is centering the voices and demands of the oppressed themselves.
One final question, Anna, that how does the campaign relate to organizations like J Street, which is a liberal Zionist organization, which is very vocal in its criticisms of the occupation and Netanyahu or the wall or whatever, but whose objective is to preserve Israel as a Jewish state? Do you see them as partial allies, or what's your relationship, or how do you position yourself with respect to them?
Well, groups like J Street are not working for liberation of Palestinians. You'll have a hard time even finding the word Palestinian in there. It's rooted in a very racist premise that what's important what Jewish people, or in this case Jewish Americans, might like, which is to reinforce the problem to begin with, and to maintain that power structure over Palestinians. So these are not allies. If they are working to maintain oppression and racism and discrimination, then we cannot call them allies. I think that we can reach out and try to point out the inconsistencies, and we should do that. And we should also remember that for many of us who did not grow up understanding what's happening in Palestine, that people have their own journeys, and many of us went through that sort of liberal, quote, liberal Zionist stage, which is maybe an oxymoron, but and so I don't think we should be, dogmatic about it and closed-minded. I think that we can explain these things in a consistent and value grounded way, but no, to support Israeli aggression against the majority of Palestinians who are in exile, and Palestinians inside Israel denied their rights as non-Jews, that's not allies.
Okay. Just before I let you go, I know that you have a busy day, Anna. We're Canadians, we're not Americans. The people who are watching my video here who are interested in following what's going on in the States, obviously, how do we keep track of your organization?
Sure. We're the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. So the acronym is USCPR.org. And you can go there, you can sign up for our action alerts. You can see it's amazing what's happening in this country in this moment, and including on the issue of Palestine. And you get a good sense of the great activism happening and how you too can plug in. We have frequent action alerts, we have conferences, we have all ways that people can engage. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well. So we would really love for people in Canada who want to connect to do so. And then I also have a website, annainthemiddleeast.com, if anyone's interested in learning more about my particular journey. I have a book and a DVD as well.
Anna Balzer of the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everybody. Bye.